Okay, we're back. We're live. We're Think Tech here on a given Thursday at the 1 to 2 block. And we're talking with Cliff Slater of HonoluluTraffic.com about is the battle over rail over? That's the question. That's the question of the day. And Cliff was kind enough to come down and talk to us about it. So, Cliff, before we get into the substance of this, and describe all the, the issues and arguments and the history of it, what about you? Can you tell us about you?
What would you like to know? We're here to discuss rail.
Give us a short précis.
I'm one of the founders and chairman of Maui Divers. I retired about 15 years ago from that. I was a CEO for about 30 years. 10 years I wrote a regular column for the Honolulu Advertiser.
On transportation?
No, on they limited me to 25% of the of
really?
the columns
a
on
percentage already.
Yeah,
I like
right.
that.
And so I wrote about a lot of things: public policy of all kinds, education, labor issues, minimum wage, all that kind of
That'll
thing.
get your feet wet.
It's online on cliffslater.com.
Yeah.
They're all there. I've been published in Transportation Quarterly. Okay, it's a national publication, peer-reviewed, and my paper on the transition from streetcars to buses is taught in universities across the United States. But my main thing, and my main hobby, if you will, avocation, has been defeating a rail line in Honolulu, and that's been going on for 27, years.
See, let me do the math. When did that start? Can you do the math on that?
Yeah, it's like 1986, 85, 86.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's a lifetime, actually.
Yeah.
But you said, and this is really what I wanted to get at. I mean, you said hobby. I thought you said hobby. So, I mean, in a funny way, people see you as an activist. You've been opposing a government project. I mean, we have activists opposing government projects all over the state. It's
Right.
in the Hawaii DNA to do that. But you're not an ordinary kind of activist. In fact, you're a hobbyist. And I wonder if you could sort of define yourself that way so people understand where you're coming from on this issue.
Well, if we go back to 1985, 86, in that area, Frank Fuss's rail line had been defeated in 1980 with the election of a different mayor. And when Frank defeated her in 84, he revived the whole idea of the rail line. And I just happened to get into looking at the numbers and looking at them a little bit harder. And I'm a businessman, right? And you spend your time trying to cut the dollars here and increase them over there, and
make it work.
You make the thing work one way or another. And I looked at the numbers, and it was just so outrageously silly.
Economically.
That I couldn't figure out that either the people didn't understand what's going on, okay, because no logic, and this is totally innocent of any politics, okay, and so I went to call on some legislators and to tell them that you've got to understand this because this isn't whatever, and they'd all thank me for taking time out of my busy schedule, but this is a routine standard thing.
Sure.
And but what it boiled down to, of course, it wasn't about transportation. It was about campaign contributions. It was about doing what they were told by the senior people in the political field. So it had absolutely nothing to do with transportation whatsoever.
What did it have to do with the construction trades?
Yes, well, again, that's a political part of it. The construction trades are a major source of funding for political office, and so that was, again, part of the politics of the whole thing.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So even then, back then in the middle 80s, when it came up didn't pencil out, even though it was a lot cheaper then than it is now.
Well, actually, if you have a look at it and look at the inflationary change in construction costs, there's no different than now.
So it's a relative thing, so relative to the times, the dollar and all that.
Yeah.
So, and then there have been efforts, so that effort in the Fosse time failed.
Right.
You campaigned against it.
No, that one continued on up to it failed in '92. It took time.
5 or 6 years.
Let me see, 7 years.
7
it took
years.
to fail that. Okay.
And why did it fail?
Because the council. Well, when the council started off, we had 2 people in the council opposed to it and 7 in favor. And over a period of time, we just gradually knocked one off after the other. And so as we approached a key vote in September of '92, we had 5 people in favor and 4 against, okay? And so then we had this one particular vote, and we were bombarding them. I mean, this is before faxes, before email, right? So we've got software to run faxes. At one point, I had 10 fax machines operated by computers running, all night long, and it was just going out. And so, getting people to call in, it was reputed to be one person at the city council fax machine. That was all they were doing was putting the paper in. So we had a lot of people involved then, and
Who were they? I mean, what kind of a group was it? Can you describe them as a community?
Yes, the older people, like for example, not this last poll, but the poll before the Star Advertiser poll. Was if you were 35 and younger were in favor, and over 35 were opposed to rail. Okay, so it was.
And same thing back then.
Yeah, and same thing back then. Yeah. So
How do you
older
explain
people.
that? How do you explain that?
Well, older people over time, I do believe, get less trusting in government. They get more realistic about money. They know that when you spend money, it's got to come from somewhere, and that doesn't seem to bother young folks. They just want to spend it. They feel sorry for people. They do this. And so they just want to spend the money. People get around 60, they start worrying, will my Social Security be there? That kind of thing. And so you tend to have an older group. I would say, 45 and older is most of the people. As my wife says, in the sign waving group, the gray hair, the white haired old ladies. So that's and they have the time. Younger people maybe working 2 or 3 jobs.
In this town, for sure.
Yeah. So that's another issue.
Okay, so and you were opposing it. You were generating, that opposition at that time,
Right.
in that period. So then it was dormant for a while.
Yes, we were then called COST, Committee on Sensible Transit. Okay, this is before the internet, before any internet. Okay, so
well, that didn't happen until '95 or so. Yeah.
right, yeah. And then so we're now HonoluluTraffic.com, which is very useful because when the media are reluctant to use our name, okay, but they don't have any choice. For example, in the lawsuit, we are HonoluluTraffic.com et al. Versus the Federal Transit
You
Administration.
give the email, the website address at the same time you say what's your name.
That's right. Yeah. So that people find their way to our site and can see that kind of stuff.
So what happened in the middle years? I mean, the whole thing with Mufi Hanneman was essentially what? In the early middle
94 he got elected, I think.
Yeah, was he? But he wasn't pushing for rail until after the year 2000.
No, I'm sorry, not 94.
2000 and change.
2000 and is it 2004? I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, 2004. He was elected. In the meantime, from '92 to 2004, we've got generally Harris. Harris took over after Fosse, and then and of course, post the rail, which had been defeated by basically the cost of it. I think most of the public was against the very high cost of it. And so Jeremy Harris went for the BR, bus rapid transit idea, okay? Now, there was two elements to the bus rapid transit. Number one was the what they called the regional, which meant bringing people in from Kapolei, Mililani, and bringing them into the edge of town. And then the second part was the in-town BRT, where they were going to use exclusive lanes, take out 2 lanes out of the center of Ala Moana Boulevard, for example. Okay, you know that. You know how
Can imagine.
congested that is. Okay, and 2 lanes out of the center of Kapiolani Boulevard.
Can imagine.
Okay, so at the moment on Kapiolani Boulevard, you've got 4 lanes running into town in the morning. Okay, they were going to take 2 lanes out of the center. And so instead of being, having, you've got 3 lanes on either side. So instead of moving over one, coning off 1 lane, so you've got 4 lanes going into town, okay, that wouldn't allow you to do that. They would have had 2 lanes going into town. And so the Transportation Association and their members just went berserk over what that was going to do to traffic congestion. And they funded the lawsuit that we took the lead on, not opposed to the regional. The regional was fine, but this was a crazy idea to take all this stuff out of Kapiolani and Ala Moana.
This is in the 90s.
No, this is excuse me. Yes, we're talking about roughly 90. Was it 98?
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, yeah. Might have been 94, but it was
somewhere in
the 90s when we went through all that thing, okay? And then that ended as Mufi came in, and Mufi made, quote unquote, a political decision to abandon bus rapid transit.
So the suit was mooted out.
Yeah. So, yes, exactly. And so he said, we're going to have rail, okay?
Okay.
And then,
now you had changed. Correct me, of course, but you were interested in the cost factor in the original Fosse program,
right?
And you were more a businessman than a city planner at the time. But when you got into the second thing with the BRT,
yes,
that's a planning issue. That's a traffic issue. It's a congestion issue.
Right.
It's a much more, I'm going to say, community-oriented, refined, analytical kind of, specialty.
Yeah.
And there you were.
Yeah.
So you had a dynamic to you. You went from simply a cost analysis now to a planning analysis. This is different,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
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 You grew in the process.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Enter Mufi.
Murphy says we're going to have rail. Okay. Now the other side of the issue, something that we'd objected to in the first go around, was how ugly this was going to be, because essentially that first iteration, defeated in '92, was almost identical to this one, except it started. It started in not in Kapolei, in Waiau, the Navy near Waikele. Okay, about as close as it gets, and then we'll run from the Waikele area to UH. Okay.
This is the original Mufi plan.
No, this is the original rail plan, the one that was
the Fosse
defeated
plan.
in '92. Okay.
Okay.
So, but other than that, it was the same. It came in along Ala Moana Boulevard, and then went north from there.
Which plan is this, so I'm clear?
The 92.
92
the
plan.
one the defeated in '92.
Okay.
So it was pretty much the same. So along the waterfront.
Okay.
Okay. So then we forward to Mufi coming into it. Okay, elected in 2004. So January 2005, he says we're going for rail, and then they started the process. And the first part of the process was to get the tax up front. Okay, so that so that they wouldn't get defeated there. And the second thing was in the planning that they figured out. They got some really smart people in the place. So they figured out they'd start out in the fields, okay, in East Kapolei, okay, so that there's no danger of digging up any Hawaiian burial sites.
And
okay?
not a lot of condemnation out there either.
Right. So they'd be halfway into town before everybody'd go, oh my God, what are they doing? Okay?
Yeah.
That
Now,
was the idea.
HonoluluTraffic.com existed at the time this started? Or was that, or did that follow the movie plan?
You know, I'm not sure when we started Honolulu Traffic. We may, I think 2003, 2004.
Okay.
Have been
All right. So, but you opposed this one because
for the same reason we opposed the first one.
basically cost.
Cost, yeah, the environmental issues.
Yeah.
Okay. And just it isn't the cost. Okay, it's the waste, because.
Well, it's like that piece on your website, a cost. What's it called? A cost disbenefit analysis.
Right.
So the cost benefit analysis doesn't work, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Of the real project.
I mean, it's normally government projects that need a cost benefit analysis.
You have to make a sharp pencil analysis. That's Cliff Slater. He is HonoluluTraffic.com. This is Think Tech. I'm Jay Fidel, and we're talking here on Community Matters. Community does matter. On Is the Battle Over Rail Over? Okay, we'll be right back after the short break.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for Think Tech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Okay, we're back. We're live. We're here with Cliff Slater of HonoluluTraffic.com here on Think Tech. Community Matters. Is the battle over rail over? Maybe it is. So I put that question to you, Cliff Slater. Is the battle over rail over?
We are just waiting now for the Ninth Circuit appellate courts to make a decision.
What's the nature of the suit? Is this the suit with you and Ben Caetano? Is that the suit?
That's it. It's not just me and Ben. I mean,
As one of the named plaintiffs, yeah.
Yes, I mean, we've got everybody from the far right to the far left on this thing. Okay, I mean, environmentalists and everything else, and we've all become quite friendly, which is very strange. But anyway, so you know, some people are really only concerned with the environmental, although you know they're also concerned with cost naturally. But some people are more concerned with the cost, etc. The thing that is what you were talking about earlier about the cost. What it is the disbenefit. For example, if you look at their own analysis, okay, which we would dispute, but let's use their numbers for a minute. They say if they build rail and they make their numbers, that they will, automobile traffic will increase by 21%. Okay? If they don't build rail, traffic will increase by 23%. Now it's a 2% difference. And actually, if you want to do it to one decimal place, it's actually 1.7%. Now, who's going to notice 1.7%? That's one way to look at it.
Okay, and that's an argument that you have made consistently, and you've drawn support for that argument from the papers of the people who would like to see rail, right? You know, where they have to admit that it's not going to do that much to resolve congestion.
Yeah, well, the problem though is that the authorities are not coming clean with the public. That's why the public, the last poll but one which the Star Advertiser did, covered what do you think about what's going to happen with traffic congestion, and only 50% of the people thought that that traffic congestion would be worse. Okay, 50% of the people either weren't sure or thought that traffic congestion would be remedied by this. Okay, so if the media had only really come clean, or if Hart had only come clean, Hart's still saying it'll take 40,000 cars off the road. Well, that's nice, but out of the 2.5 million automobile trips, I mean, it's nothing. That's the 1.7%.
Yeah.
But they don't say that. They put it out there, and it sounds to the kind of people who are working 2 jobs and just reading the headlines in the newspapers. They're not going to understand.
We're going to get to public education. Just want to get the landscape. So, rail, we know is going ahead. I mean, right now, I guess there's some people out there in toward Kapolei who are building things and putting those stanchions in and pouring a lot of concrete, the kind of concrete that you can't take out very easily, and operating under contracts that you can't break very easily. So, we're in a kind of we're in a.
Well, let's quantify that a minute. They've built, according to their release a couple of days ago, they've built 40 of the supporting pillars.
Yeah.
Out of the 720 they're going to have to build. Okay,
Oh,
and these are the easy ones.
Yeah.
Nothing like
The ones downtown will be really special. Yeah.
Yes, because that's fill land,
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not
Especially past Kaka'ako and anywhere near the waterfront and all that.
Yeah. It's the fill land is special.
And
Okay.
Ala Moana too. It's all fill land over there.
Yeah.
Okay, but so they're making some progress. I mean, they have at least a partial green light, I guess, that they can do this. At the same time, the suit's pending. Is there any injunction out there that modifies their ability to proceed?
No, when we went for an injunction, the city said we're building these columns. We have the wherewithal, if the suit goes against us, to take these columns out.
Oh, that'd be very costly.
But we want to leave them in, okay, because we want to put the names. In fact, we'll name each one of them after the primary political proponents of the rail line, okay? With large,
this column is dedicated to Mufi Hanneman.
yeah, and everybody else. Our present city council.
Okay, so there's some progress going on. They're not being enjoined. They're proceeding.
That's right.
And they have some money from Washington. I guess that came in already.
Some
1.5.
No, I think 250. But I don't know.
Oh, that's the
yet.
okay. All right. So it comes dribs and drabs, and I guess, am I right to say that it's subject to the slings and arrows of Congress? I mean, this is not guaranteed money, or is it?
No, except that by tradition, once they say that they're going to fund it, they've never not funded it.
Okay, so we have a 1.5 billion ultimately coming in on this.
It's 1.8 altogether.
Okay, good. All right, so that's in place.
Yeah.
This is happening. The tax is being collected, that extra
Yeah,
gross excise.
That's one thing to say. The amount of work that's been done, it's 6% of the columns. But when you consider all the rail lines, the other concrete part of the...
It's really less
things.
than 6%.
Yeah, it's
because
more,
there's all
more
these,
like about 3.
supporting structures and all kinds of infrastructure they're going to have to build. So we're only at the very, very beginning here.
Right.
Okay, so that's what's happening there. So they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
And your efforts to stop them are the lawsuit, which is
Right.
pending in is it
Ninth Circuit.
Ninth Circuit. It's an appeal situation, and you're waiting on the judge there, one
Right.
judge in the Ninth Circuit.
3 judges.
Okay, 3-judge panel for this
Yeah.
case. And your argument is it's not good for the people, but what is your legal argument to stop it?
Well, the legal argument is quite simple. They are required to really examine closely the reasonable alternatives. Okay. Now, since before they had, when Parsons Brinckerhoff and the city had prepared the said had prepared the environmental impact statement for the bus rapid transit program. They had written out all the reasons of why they supported bus rapid transit and why they were opposed to rail. Okay? And that was all carefully spelled out. And the environmental impact statement for BRT showed greater ridership projections than they are currently forecasting for the rail. Okay? At a fraction of the cost. I mean, like 10% of the cost.
So you question, what they are, the foundation of their permission to go ahead.
Right.
You're questioning that they didn't do it right.
Right.
And therefore what? That the judge should stop them until what? It's done right?
No, what they should do is to go back to what they did wrong, which was what is called the process called the alternatives analysis. Okay, and look at
That's been in the paper quite a bit.
yeah, and so and look at. I mean, this is we get 58 different things that we complained about.
Of course.
Okay.
I just
So
want
I'm
to get
just
to the
giving you
core.
one,
Yeah.
the one that I think is so blatant that the fact that they didn't consider bus rapid transit in the
And how to handle the
EIS.
problem. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And why?
It wasn't that they considered it and didn't reject it, so we don't have to deal with their judgment on this issue.
Yeah.
We're dealing with flaws in the process.
Yeah.
Okay? When they didn't consider something that they had said was the preferable alternative and preferable to rail and then detailed why,
Yeah.
okay, then how could they possibly not consider it in the current
So
project?
for the failure of that options consideration, you're asking that they stop the project
Yeah.
and make them go back and do an options consideration and
Yeah.
rethink it.
Yes.
Okay.
And we think that the bus rapid transit will just hands down walk all over this. That's why they didn't consider it.
Because they didn't want bus, they wanted
They-
rail.
They wanted rail.
For the same reasons you described earlier.
Yes, you don't get any campaign contributions out of bus rapid transit. It's this.
too
You
easy.
buy buses. It's just. I mean, it's just regular business, right? It's not. There's a lot of non-bid stuff in the rail deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is pending now, and the judge is supposed to, or the panel of judges is
Yes.
supposed to make a decision when?
We think within the next 60 days.
Oh, okay, well, that'll be headline, whatever
Yes.
they do. And there's a possibility that they will say, this process was flawed, you gotta go back and consider other options.
Right.
Stop, and we'll wait till you consider other options. And that'll be interesting if that happens. What do you give the chances? I mean, if you don't want to give me, possibilities, then it's okay, but.
We really, and our attorneys also really think that what is the argument that they can use?
Well, we
about
must be
not
using some
considering-
argument. What argument did they make in opposition to your argument about the failure to consider the other alternatives?
Trust me, it's not worth looking at. There's several pages of nonsense. Okay. You
Okay.
can't. I mean, you can't. There is nothing you can say about that. That reasonable people will not realize that should have been considered in the alternatives.
But am I right to assume, I'm sorry I haven't followed it better, but am I right to assume that the lower court, which would have been the U.S. District Court
Right.
here,
Yeah.
found that there was not a problem, that they failed to follow failed to examine
Yes,
the other
California Judge Tashima,
options? Sitting here in the Hawaii District, or was he
sitting
visiting?
here. Yes,
Visiting,
yes.
okay.
Because all our own judges have recused themselves because they were all opposed to it.
Right, the federal building in Halakawila Street. and
That's right.
Coming down the street, okay.
And saying, and subsequently, they have written to the court and said that obviously the Beretania Street alternative is the preferable one, okay? For a variety of reasons, and they gave good arguments, and they said that they're saying things like going to Ala Moana Center okay, is going to not help traffic congestion because the place doesn't even open until 9:30.
But did that judge, the district judge sitting here, visiting,
Yes.
did he find that it was not a problem, that they had failed to consider the other
right.
options? So that's the point you were appealing him on.
Yeah.
Or
Well, that's one of the
points.
One
yeah.
of the points.
Okay, this is Cliff Slater. It's really interesting to talk to him, because this has been a huge issue. It's affected, really our lifetime already. All these, all these efforts at rail, and we're still
Certainly
involved, and it's certainly going to affect our city one way or the other. Cliff Slater with HonoluluTraffic.com. Here you are on Think Tech. Community does matter. It's a battle over rail over, and we're ruminating about all of these things and learning. I'm Jay Fidel. We'll be right back in a moment.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
We're back. We're live. We're here with Cliff Slater of HonoluluTraffic.com. Here on Think Tech, Community Matters. Is the battle over rail over? We're talking about, taking a snapshot of where we have been, where we are, where it might go. And in this part of the show, Cliff, I'd like to ask you, what the impediments are on both sides.
Okay.
So I guess let's begin with you. You want to stop them still?
Yes.
You want to change you prefer to have no rail, but if you have to have rail, you want it to be organized and planned differently, and you want it to have different bus elements, and maybe, I don't know if this is part of your program, but you want to maybe have it at grade instead of on elevated.
No, the fact of the matter is, you can't make any changes to it. Okay, as a practical matter. The mayor, Caldwell, said when he was running for office that he was going to hide it behind buildings or something like that. It was just nonsense. You really can't. It's big, it's ugly, it's noisy, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay.
Okay?
So, what are their impediments going forward? They have your lawsuit. They have to work. You have to deal with that.
Yeah, well, yes.
And they may win, they may lose, and you may win, you may lose. That's one thing that they ought to be concerned about. I guess the other thing is the public opinion and the economy. If the economy of the state goes sour, it's going to be hard to support the construction expense and also the operating expense going forward.
Well, on public opinion, I want to point out that our cost-benefit analysis, okay, is available on the website honolulutraffic.com, so people can go through that. And if you read and believe this, okay, then you would understand that what we're doing is shelling out at least $5 billion.
The problem is, isn't this a done deal? Sometimes you get into I don't like to use the word activism, but an activist kind of position. You lose in court, okay, take it up, lose in court, take it up, lose in court. When do you stop? And when does your constituency stop and lose interest? The question is...
well, there is, if and when they rule in our favor in this, okay, we've still got to contend with a lot of people, the 34% of the people who still favor rail. Okay, we've got to deal with them.
You're talking about your impediments now.
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's a huge block of people who will be unhappy, and they're unhappy because there's the people that think that rail is going to improve traffic congestion. That's the people who support it.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've got to show them that it doesn't. So, this kind of paper to show people that, hey, we're thinking of spending $5.2 billion, most probably be $7 billion, okay, because they all run cost overruns.
But don't you have, they have the impediment that they may lose public opinion. They may lose in court, they may lose public
Well, no,
opinion, they may lose the money. Any number of things could happen, with or without activism by you, to undermine their to derail their rail.
Sure.
On the other hand, you have impediments too. One of them is you may lose your constituency too, and find that people are saying, "All right, enough. This que sera, sera. We're not going to fight this for all of our lives. You're going to stop someone." Not working well, people sort of tend to accept that. And if I were you, I'd be a little concerned that at some point, if rail is actually working, you're not going to have a lot of people opposing it because it's a done deal.
Oh yeah, no. It's going to get to a certain point when there's, as you say, it's a done deal. Okay, we're nowhere near that.
Okay.
We're nowhere near. If in the next, let's say in the next 30 days, okay, we get a favorable opinion, we will not be, let's say, 10% into the total cost of the thing, total amount of construction, anywhere or close to it. Okay, so that's.
Okay, so if you win, you'll certainly have leverage. If you win, would you go and sort of negotiate with them, or just try to stop them and let them figure out another way? Keep coming with a new idea, sort of thing.
Well, this is one of these things where, from every aspect, from the cost, from the environmental. I mean, this thing running down our waterfront. Okay, when everybody else that's had an elevated line, other than Chicago. Chicago's the last remnant of elevated rail lines. Okay.
New York had elevated rails all over Manhattan. In fact, in other boroughs too, and most of them are down now.
Yeah.
Because people hated them.
That's right.
They made noise. They invaded your privacy. If you lived nearby, they were dark. It was a whole quality of life thing, and they somehow attracted crime too.
Yeah, well, look at when they took down the Embarcadero Freeway in San Francisco. Okay, just suddenly the place is now wide open. The ferry building. It's a beautiful area now.
Wasn't that an earthquake or something took it down?
That was the final straw.
Okay.
Yes. But the result is
That's
the
what
same.
we need.
The result is the same. We need an earthquake.
Knock over those pillars. Good earthquake. Yeah. Okay. Well, here we are. We're in the middle. I mean, suppose you lose in the Court of Appeals to the Ninth Circuit. What happens then?
We haven't considered that. We really don't.
Would you go to the Supreme Court? Would you try?
If you can't win an environmental lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit, then you might as well give up.
It's a very environmental circuit for sure.
Yeah. And we've got, we've got Outdoor Circle and Hawaii's Thousand Friends are plaintiffs, and I mean, the Outdoor Circle thinks that this is as big a threat as was the billboard operation.
Concerned about the view channels and the quality of life in a canyon place. I mean, they should have the same concern about Kaka'aka with those buildings going up.
Yeah.
But I want to get back to something you talked about, because I think there are an increasing number of people who are aware or becoming aware of the fact that during the Mufi Hanneman years, we, the public, were not getting the straight poop on exactly what was going on.
Right.
And I can tell you stories. I sat on the neighborhood board in my neighborhood, and wow, we were not getting the straight poop.
Right.
And we had little or no input, even though we wanted to have input.
Yep.
The city was bouncing that right off, and we had nothing to say. It was they talked about it as if it was a done deal, and that was in the middle 2000s, a long time before it was really anything close to a done deal.
Yeah.
And I think, I'd like to know.
Still not close to a done deal.
Right, okay. 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 But I'm just wondering, what happened there? What happened in this city of ours where we were, arguably railroaded? What happened? Is it the people who failed to demand information? Is it the newspapers who failed to do, analytical reporting? Is it the government who tried to manipulate the newspapers and the public into not seeing the reality of it? This is a serious problem because, granted, this is the biggest project that ever happened, but it could happen again.
Unless they were rhetorical questions, I can answer them by saying yes to all of them. Okay.
I don't mean to make it easy for you, Cliff.
No, it's, and I would say this is not unusual. This is the norm. In all the rail lines, people across the United States and internationally, they lie about the amount of riders that they think there's going to be. They lie about what it's going to cost. And it's been the subject of innumerable scholarly papers on the issue.
But in these United States, as the way the law goes, and the emergence of an environmental consciousness, which is two-sided sword. We have trouble getting big projects built. We had trouble building the convention center. Any big project in the state runs against all kinds of people who, don't want change. They want status quo. And, they call themselves activists, but really what it is don't do anything. Just hold it into nostalgia. We don't want to go anywhere with this. And you're always going to have that. Therefore, what happens, not only here but elsewhere, is the government tries to do end runs, okay, and try to get around that. Try not to take steps that avoid public pushback. In China, it doesn't happen. Boy, if they had the American system trying to build the Three Gorges Dam, it would never have gotten built, never.
Right.
And many, many other projects in China. They have this kind of political will that gets it done. We don't.
Well, I think, you've got to consider whether these things, it's one thing to say things like the rail line should have been built, okay? And it's another thing to say we really can't justify it, but we want it anyway, and we'll lie to the public to get it.
I'm just wondering about how you make decisions, how you would educate the public on big projects, any big project. I think we agree that the process here was flawed.
Yes.
And the way the public was handled was flawed. And arguably the way that, the whole approval process was handled was flawed.
Yes.
For reasons
But it is standard. The people that were brought in to run the program, okay, like for example, Parsons Brinckerhoff, they took one of the senior officials out of Parsons Brinckerhoff and made him head of the Department of Transportation. Okay.
I remember that.
They got a group of people from Parsons Brinckerhoff, okay, who'd formed a consulting company. They became the managers, okay, of the Parsons Brinckerhoff planning and engineering.
Cozy.
Okay, if that.
But they're out now, aren't they?
But now Parsons Brinckerhoff is out. I don't know for whatever reason, but one of these days we'll find out. I think truth always out in time.
But if you were making a perfect city, and I think you want to, I think we all do at some level. How do you do it? How do you build big projects without running into either people that want to stop everything or processes that are end run? It's a tension, right? And there's always going to be the tension on a big project. How do you make the right decision? It's almost like Sim City come current, How do you make these decisions?
Well, if you look at the rail lines, okay, you cannot if you do a real cost analysis, cost-benefit analysis, or a cost-disbenefit analysis, you can't justify any of the modern rail lines. None of them. The amount of, I think, just the maintenance that they're behind on maintenance at the moment of the major 7 rail lines. Okay, it's $60 billion, and that's what they're just behind on. Just bring it up to minimum standard. Okay, the costs of these things are just incredible.
And yet, as you said, the young people think, well, let's spend the money, no big deal. And the public in general essentially let it happen.
Sure.
They weren't informed. They didn't know what you just analyzed. And so how do we fix that going forward? There will be, like we could have desalination. We could have, the energy projects like the undersea cable. Big projects, and we're going to get stuck the same way because the government will try to do an end run. We've seen that even in recent years, and the activists will say no to everything. And they'll be right sometimes, and they won't be right other times. How do you make these decisions?
Well, you certainly have to open up the system so that people get told the truth, okay? And if the public, for example, the public has become aware now, okay, of what this thing is going to cost. Okay, we've now got, it looks like it must have a majority of the people are understanding that traffic congestion is, nothing's going to happen for traffic congestion.
Yeah.
This will use more fuel than it would if we were using buses.
It could be worse yet because we could go down the road, build the whole system, and then find that everything Cliff Slater said was right.
Yeah. Oh, no,
and then we'd be saddled with it.
Well, you can look at this stuff, and I'm not using my numbers here. We are using federal government numbers to show where they're lying about the fuel savings.
We had a program, the Think Tech and the Hawaii Venture Capital Association last year. You might have been there. I think you must have been there. And Neil Milner was there. The most interesting comment that he made was hard to argue with it. He said this project was different in the sense that usually you have political, call it consensus, I use that term loosely, political decision process, political consensus process, before you start digging up the ground. In this case, it didn't work that way. Whatever the forces and arguments and powers and authorities were, they were digging up the ground before the public had settled on what they wanted. And I guess the question I put to you, has the public settled yet?
Oh yes, that the last Merriman poll that was run by Civil Beat clearly shows. I mean, when you've got only 35% of the people in favor of the rail line.
Does that mean 65 are opposed?
I guess there's about 5 or 6% undecided, but clear opposition. And interestingly now across age groups and across racial groups, I mean, it was just astonishing how much that has shifted.
So let me, it's a conundrum because here we are building those pillars even as we speak. Maybe the court attack will work, maybe not. This could be a bad time, one way or the other. I mean, to build it when only 35% of people want it, that's not just a good result. And to stop it and get involved in millions and hundreds of millions of dollars of lawsuits with the contractors, that's not a good result either. So we really got ourselves in something here.
On the lawsuits, okay, everybody is fully aware, okay, from the get-go that we filed before they built the first pillar.
Does that change?
We had a lawsuit out there. They knew that.
So use as a defense to the suit where they file a breach of contract suit against the city?
Yeah, because if the city gets ordered to stop, they can't blame the city for that, right?
Would be an interesting question. Cliff, there was so much more here, and what I wanted to do, which we didn't do, and maybe we have to, discuss it further, is exactly what do we see here in Sim City? How will the city be? How will the city be with rail? How will it be without rail? How do we see our city? It's so important. I was driving, to close with this, I was driving around the other day, just lolling around on a given Sunday and looking around at the city, and I said to myself, the mountains are pretty, the ocean is pretty, the sky is beautiful, but the city itself is not a pretty city. We have not attended to making the city a pretty city. We have not attended to green parks and nice roadways and trees and all the things that you would like. And other cities have these things. We do not have
But
them.
you must remember, you cannot cut ribbons on maintenance.
Thank you. We'll leave it there. We'll be back for more. Cliff Slater, HonoluluTraffic.com. You cannot cut ribbons on maintenance. Here at Think Tech, Community Matters is the battle over rail over. We'll revisit this from time to time as we go forward. It's always good to have community discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Aloha.